So here we see in today's verse, continuing with the explanation of the devotional service. So Kapila Muni, after explaining the adulterated devotional service, then he speaks on pure devotional service and how a devotee doesn't even expect sarlokya, sarshti and such even spiritual assets. And then he speaks about how just by performing pure devotional service, a devotee comes to the platform or is elevated to the level qualitatively one with the Supreme Lord Himself. So in today's verse we see another 5 points are being mentioned in today's verse about the execution of devotional service. So 2 points are being elaborately explained in the purport by Srila Prabhupada. So totally there are 5. So let us see one by one. The first is Animittena Nishevitena Animittena Swadharmena Mahiyasa. So Nishevita means to serve or to execute. Execute what? Execute Kriya Yogena. Kriya Yogena means here referring to devotional activities. Nishevitena Kriya Yogena. Execute your devotional service. How that needs to be executed are all the different things mentioned in today's verse. That has to be executed animittena. Nimitta means we have heard how there is some cause with some expectation, whatever. So animittena means without attachment to the result. So we perform devotional service and many a times we expect some result from that. So in detail we have heard about it in the previous verses. Devotional service in the mode of goodness, passion, ignorance, varieties of expectations are there. So pure devotional service, it should be animittena, without any expectation or attachment to the result. So this is the first one. The second one, Swadharmena Mahiyasa Swadharmena. Mahiyasa means glorious, and Swadharmena one's own prescribed duties. By performing one's own prescribed duties which are glorious. So this very elaborately Prabhupada explains in today's purport. Anyone can serve the Supreme Lord by performing his prescribed duties under the direction of a spiritual master. Any person he may be, coming from whatever category, specifically during the Vedic times, the category of Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. Each of these categories, without considering that no one should think that his prescribed duties are something inferior. Is it that only Brahmanas, they can serve the Supreme Lord? Their activities are something supreme? Their activities are something glorious? The answer is no. All the activities performed by all the various divisions, they are all glorious. So no one should think that their prescribed duty is inferior. So Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Yatah pravrittir bhutanam yena sarvam idam tatam svakarmana tam avyarcha siddhim vindanti manavaha. So one person, he's been allocated, ascribed some service, some prescribed duty. So if he does that prescribed duty sincerely, faithfully, and offers it to Krishna, then he reaches all perfection. It is not required that only the Brahmanas or the higher castes, they can only serve the Supreme Lord in whatever and become perfect in their lives. No. Swakarmana tam abhyarchya siddhim vindanti manavaha. Siddhi, or they can reach the perfectional stage by doing their own prescribed duties. And how to do that? Of course, in the Bhagavad Gita, in the later verses, Krishna goes on to explain that. Here, in today's purport, Srila Prabhupada gives some examples. So let us see one by one. Say, just like if you take the first category, say a Brahmana. Of course, the example is not mentioned in today's purport here. But if we see the Vedic literatures, if we see the Bhagavatam, there are various examples given. Let us take one or two examples so that we can understand it more better. How, using the qualification of a Brahmana, in the example of Mother Rukmini, when she got the news that her marriage is being settled with Shishupala and not with Krishna, whom she had desired, she became very unhappy. And through one Brahmana, she noted one Brahmana, and she sent a secret message to Lord Krishna in Dwaraka. And she expressed her mind in a wonderful way, and this secret message was carried by that Brahmana all the way he went to Dwaraka. And because he was a Brahmana, he was let inside the palace without much checking and regulations and stoppage, whatever. Easily he was able to get into the inner chambers of the palace and personally meet Lord Krishna, and he handed over the letter, the message given by Rukmini, the princess of Vidarbha. So Krishna, after reading that, immediately he set out along with the Brahmana. Together both of them, they came to the kingdom of Vidarbha. There Krishna, he stayed back at the outskirts and sent the Brahmana to inform Rukmini that yes, I have come and I'll do the necessary thing what is required, so you need not fear. So same message was being brought back and conveyed to Mother Rukmini. So here we see how this Brahmana acted as a messenger, truthful messenger, in conveying or giving assurance to Mother Rukmini. So this one example we see. One more example let us see in the case of the story of King Chitraketu. So Chitraketu did not have sons. He was very morose, very sad. So once when Angira Muni, when he comes, so he observes this. Chitraketu is very morose. So Angira Muni, he wanted to teach him a lesson. Why he should be morose like this? Because of his karma, whatever, he doesn't have a son. But Chitraketu was very morose. So Angira Muni, as a perfect Brahmana, he wanted to teach the king a lesson. So he says, okay, my dear king, yes, you want a son? Yes, I'll arrange for it. And he made the arrangement through which Chitraketu got a son, but he had warned, this son of yours will be the cause for your jubilation and lamentation. The king initially thought, yes, getting a son, I'll be very happy. But lamentation, maybe after he becomes little elder, he may not listen to me. That may bring me some lamentation. Still, that is okay. He did not care for that. But what happened? The other wives of Chitraketu, the Kritadyuti, she begot a son, and the other co-wives, they became very envious and they poisoned the child, and the child died. And Chitraketu became very morose again, very unhappy. The description is given how he, while coming, when he heard the news, his heart sunk, he stumbled and fell, tears in eyes, his all hair scattered and very dejected. They were all like say cursing the providence and all of those things. So again Angira Muni comes back along with Narada Muni, and they bring back the dead son back to life. And that dead son, he starts speaking big philosophy. Who is my father? Who is my mother? So many lifetimes, so many parents I had. Which lifetime you are speaking of? So in this way, a very big philosophy, the dead child, he started speaking. And then he, I cannot come back. I have my own journey to whatever, what is prescribed to me by the Supreme Lord. So, and he left. And then Chitraketu and his wife Kritadyuti, they were solaced, hearing the words, what their own son spoke, and he left. So this was an arrangement made by Angira Muni to teach a lesson to Maharaja Chitraketu that we see. And in one more extreme case, we saw how in the case of Vena Maharaja, the Brahmanas went to the extent of killing the king because he was so atrocious. And then, of course, immediately after that, they made an arrangement for a son to be born from the dead body of the father of Maharaja Vena. That's how Prithu Maharaja, he was born. So, these are some examples we see how, as a Brahmana, using their Brahmanical qualities, the power what they had, the trust and faith what they had got from the society, used those in the service of the society and the service of the Supreme Lord. Likewise, how a Kshatriya can use his potential, whatever he has, in the service of the Lord. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada gives the example of, anyone remembers? Arjuna, yes. Arjuna, how he was a Kshatriya and he served Krishna, fighting in the battlefield. So it was Krishna's desire to enthrone Maharaja Yudhishthira on the throne of Hastinapura. So Arjuna fought and fulfilled that desire of Krishna. And after that, even Maharaja Yudhishthira, as an ideal Kshatriya, it was not for his personal glorification or his personal extravagance, he acquired the kingdom. No, his intention, we see in the case of Rajasuya sacrifice, he wanted to glorify Krishna as the recipient of the Agra Puja, and how wonderfully he performed the Rajasuya sacrifice by making all that elaborate arrangement what was required, by winning over all the inimical kings, and finally Krishna was offered that Agra Puja, and he was glorified in a wonderful way. So this is the duty of a Kshatriya, how Maharaja Yudhishthira he did. And likewise we see in the case of Maharaja Parikshit, when he saw one dark man hitting the leg of a cow and bull, immediately he took out his sword to take action, to punish him. So that's the Kshatriya, to give protection, to help people, to give protection for devotees, all of these things, how they use their skill in the service of the society and the Supreme Lord. And then Vaishya, the example given by Prabhupada. Yes, Nanda Maharaja and his associates in Vrajadhama. Nanda Maharaj was a Vaishya. He had many cows, he had agricultural land, and through that he maintained them and he earned a good living, was very rich, very opulent person, and he used that all, just like Prabhupada writes in the purport, Nanda Maharaja and all the Gopas, they were not all educated, but they could serve Krishna by loving him and by offering everything to him. So this is the example. And likewise, see, even a Shudra, how he can serve Krishna, satisfy Krishna? Of course, in the purport, examples are not mentioned. Anything you can think of? Yeah, correct, Vidura. Yeah, the example is mentioned by Prabhupada here. Vidura. Though he was born from a Shudra mother, how he served Krishna. In the story of the Bhagavatam 10th Canto, we see the Krishna book, the stories of how when Krishna was coming towards Mathura, there was a washerman who objected to give clothes to Krishna, and Krishna killed him immediately and took off nice clothing what he had belonging to Kamsa. And then when he proceeded further towards the palace of Kamsa, there was one tailor, simple ordinary tailor, who helped Krishna in stitching the clothes, making a turban for him, and very beautifully he decorated with nice other embellishments. So he served him, and further Krishna went, there was one florist by name Sudama, who used to make flower garlands and all of them. So very nice flower garlands he made for Krishna, Balaram and all of his associates. And Krishna was very happy by receiving his service. And further he went ahead, there was this Kubja who was making sandalwood paste. And Krishna asked her, and she offered everything to Krishna. And Krishna was very happy with her. So this is how simple people, with their own simple jobs they were doing, and whatever they had, they offered it to Krishna. And Krishna was fully satisfied with their offerings. So this is how, in whatever category a person may belong to, a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya or a Shudra, using all of their abilities, their own set of qualities, how they can engage that in the service of the Supreme Lord. Only if it is offered to the Supreme Lord, whatever, it can be known as perfect. Atah pumbir dvija shrestha varnashrama vibhagashaha svanushthitasya dharmasya samsiddhir haritoshanam. There should be haritoshana, the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. Not just I'll perform the activity of Vaishya for my own sake. No. If it has to be pure devotional service, it should be animittena, without attachment to the result of your activity. A Vaishya, he earns a lot of money from whatever trading activities he does. That has to be offered to the Supreme Lord for his satisfaction, in order to be known as, or come to the category of pure devotional service. So likewise, all of these categories, different people, everyone can be engaged in the service of the Lord. In fact, not just these four categories, even people lower than them, say the Chandalas or the Yavanas, Mlechas, who doesn't come under even these four categories, we have seen instances of how even such people can be elevated to the platform of pure devotional service. Any examples for that? In Ramayana, boatman. The boatman is, boatman at least is fourth category, not Chandalas and Lechas. Squirrel, okay, an animal. Mrigari, yes. Mrigari, I think he comes under that category. Who asked? Uddhava. Uddhava is an associate or cousin of Krishna. He is also a Kshatriya. Yes, he also served Krishna. So we see how even not even belonging to these whatever Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, even lower than that. The example of say a hunter like Mrigari, who was taking pleasure in half killing animals and seeing them suffering pain. Even such people, by coming in touch with pure devotees, they were able to give up all their unwanted habits and able to render pure devotional service to the Lord. Likewise, we see the case of Ajamila, how though he was born as a Brahmana, but gave up all his Brahminical qualities, he performed all sinful activities of killing people, plundering, stealing and intoxication and everything. All abominable activities, but somehow by good fortune in his later life he was able to give up all of these things and was able to render pure devotional service to Krishna. So the conclusion is, this is possible for everyone. So rendering pure devotional service is open for everyone and it is possible for everyone. We need to identify what are the characteristics of pure devotional service and check for ourselves. Am I rendering service, devotional service to the Lord of this category? Is it animittena? Am I detached from the results? Am I performing my prescribed duties? And then another one, na atihimsrena. Am I performing my duties, not committing violence? So whatever duties we do with minimum violence. Prabhupada says in the purport how it is not practical for us to go ahead performing our duties with zero violence. No. We are living in this conditional material world wherein violence is involved. It is required. But the principle is minimum violence as much as is required, as much as is ordered or sanctioned by the Supreme Lord. These two considerations we should keep. The example of how the food what we eat, we say yes, meat eating, no, it shouldn't be done. It involves violence committed against animals. But aren't vegetarians committing violence? What's the answer? Yes, even vegetarians are committing violence by plucking the fruits or vegetables, and especially in case of some green leafy vegetables, we pull out the plant just like coriander and say such things and all. So there is violence involved. But the principle is Jivo Jivasya Jivanam. One living entity can maintain himself in this material world by depending or killing another living entity. So there is violence involved. Without that we can't survive, we can't live. But we should follow the principles given in the Vedic literatures as minimum as possible, and that which is sanctioned by the Supreme Lord. So what is sanctioned by the Supreme Lord? Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Yajna Shishta Shinas Santo Muchante Sarvakil Vishaihi. Whatever you eat, do it as an offering to the Lord and accept the remnants of the foodstuffs which are offered to the Lord. Yajna Shishta, Shishta means leftover. By eating that, Santaha, devotees, Muchante Sarvakil Vishaihi. They are relieved from all the sinful reactions. And what category to offer? If at all Krishna had asked, you offer me some animal food, meat or whatever, and that should have been done. But no, that is specific, coming under the category of say patram, pushpam, phalam, toyam, some little fruit, little flower, little water, and such things, simple things Krishna is asking. So, these foodstuffs, offering to the Lord, and we accept the remnants. Through that, we will be relieved of all sinful activity. So what is prescribed by the Supreme Lord, which involving minimum violence, Because without violence, you can't just, you are drinking water, you are killing millions of microbes there, just walking around somewhere, we are stepping over so many, very tiny living entities, so you can't avoid that. So all activities what we do, we should do it as a service to the Supreme Lord. Then whatever these minimal violence involved in that, that will be taken care. But purposefully going and killing animals and giving it pain, seeing them wriggling in pain and all painful cries, and just for the sake of our palate, so that is not to be done. So our prescribed duties are supposed to perform na ati himsrena. Then another characteristic is shastena. Shastena means auspicious. Performance of pure devotional service is all auspicious. In fact, the Nectar of Devotion says this, the 6 characteristics of pure devotional service. The first one is Shubhada. Performance of pure devotional service brings about all auspiciousness. And then finally, Nityashaha. Nityashaha means one should regularly perform one's devotional activities. We hear Krishna telling in the Bhagavad Gita, Satatam kirtayanto mam, always. And Kirtaniya sada harihi, always you should chant, always, that is there, that's prescribed. And now, okay, just quickly at the end, I'll be telling you this, I'll read out one part from the lecture of Srila Prabhupada. We have heard how, when Prabhupada went to the Western world, it was in the year 1965, and later the next year, 1966, he established the first ISKCON center in New York, and the coming year, the deities were installed, say Jagannath deities first in San Francisco. He had sent his few American disciples, they had gone to San Francisco, they had opened one center and they invited Prabhupada there. And there, one devotee, one woman devotee, she had gone to one Indian store in San Francisco and found one small Jagannath deity there. She thought, let me go and gift it to Prabhupada. So she brought it and gave it to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada was very happy. Immediately he offered his obeisances. Where did you get this? Jagannath has come. So she says, okay, I got it in one Indian store. I thought you would be happy looking at it, so I brought it. And Prabhupada asked, did you find another set of similar deities? She says, yes. Another one yellow color and one white color was also there. Bring them also. So immediately she runs back and gets the deities of Baladev and Subhadra also. And another devotee who was into wooden work, carpentry. So Prabhupada requested him, can you make a bigger size, same model of this Jagannath from wood? Yeah, it's very simple, easily I can make it. So the devotee took up the task and carved the first Jagannath deities of ISKCON, and during the installation ceremony, Srila Prabhupada gave one lecture there, and one small clipping from that portion I'll be reading. This was in March 1967 in San Francisco, Jagannath deity installation. Prabhupada. Therefore, we have established back to Godhead. The students are allowed, whatever they are hearing, they must be thoughtful and right. Kirtitavyascha, not only simply hearing. So Prabhupada is speaking about Back to Godhead magazine. He was inspiring devotees to write articles for the Back to Godhead magazine. Not just hearing, you should write also. Oh, I am hearing for millions of years, still I cannot understand. Because you do not chant, you do not repeat what you have heard. You have to repeat. Kirtitavyascha. It's not that, oh, simply I am hearing and I don't understand anything. No. You should speak out, you should write, you should articulate it. Kirtitavyascha is what Prabhupada says. And then Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Dhyeyaha. And how you can write or how you can speak unless you think about him. You are hearing about Krishna, you have to think, then you can speak, otherwise not. So Shrotavya, Kirtitavyaha and Dhyeyaha, you have to think about Krishna. Then, because how devotee should be thoughtful, he should contemplate, he should think, Dhyeyaha, that's encouraged. Then, so Shrotavyaha, Kirtitavyascha, Dhyeyaha and Pujyaha cha, Pujyascha, and you should worship. Therefore, we require this deity for worshipping. So he shows the Jagannath deity and says, yes, so this is what Bhagavatam says, we should do Pujyaha, we should worship. So, we require the deity. Therefore, we require this deity for worshipping. We have to think of, we have to speak, we have to hear, we have to worship. Pujyascha. Then occasionally, no. Nityada, regularly, should be made regular. Nityada. So every day, it's not that occasionally we worship. No. Prabhupada says, Nityada, Nityasaha, regularly we have to worship. And Prabhupada concludes by saying, Nityada, this is the process. So anyone who adopts this process, he can understand the absolute truth. This is the clear declaration of Srimad Bhagavatam. This is actually an explanation of this verse. Tasmadekena manasa Bhagavan Satvatam Patihi Shrotavyah Kirtitavyascha Deyah Pujyascha Nityada. Regularly, every day or whatever, in a regular manner, we need to hear, we need to speak, or we need to write, we need to think about, and we need to worship the Supreme Lord. This is what Bhagavatam recommends. So that's what we see here, Kapila Muni telling. So in order to come to the pure level, the practice of our devotional service should be animittena, without being attached to the result. Swadharmena, whatever is prescribed, gloriously we need to go on performing it, and it is sustained, it is all auspicious. Nati himsrena, with minimum violence it should be involving, and nityashaha, it should be performed regularly. We'll end with this. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.